check your phone before you get out of bed. You check it again at the red light. You check it at dinner under the table, when you think no one is looking. It feels like a habit. It feels like your choice. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain is running on hardware built for a world that no longer exists. And one machine, 200 years ago, is the reason you can feel it slipping. In 1785, a machine changed its shape. Not a phone, not a computer. A loom. Before that year, weaving cloth took skill. It took years to learn. A single weaver could sit at a hand loom and produce a few yards of fabric in a day, thread by thread, by judgment call. It was slow. It was also a livelihood. Entire towns in England organized their lives around it. Then Edmund Cartwright patented the power loom. It ran on water, later on steam. It didn't get tired. It didn't need years of training. It didn't ask for a wage that could support a family. Within a few decades, tens of thousands of hand-loom weavers watched their trade disappear. Historians estimate the number of displaced weavers eventually climbed past 20,000 in some regions of England alone. And in the decades that followed, closer to 250,000 across the country lost the work their families had done for generations. What would you do if the thing you built your identity around simply stopped needing you? Some of them smashed the machines, literally. Groups of workers, later called Luddites, broke into mills at night and destroyed the very looms that had replaced them. The British government responded by making machine breaking a capital offense. People were executed for hitting a loom with a hammer. That's how threatening a machine can feel. When it doesn't just take your job, it takes the meaning that job gave you. Here's the part most people get wrong. The historian Eric Hobsbawm spent years studying the Luddite uprisings, and he found something the popular story leaves out. The weavers weren't against technology itself. Many of them had used tools their whole lives. What they were reacting to was the speed. The machines arrived faster than any community could absorb the loss. Wages collapsed before new work appeared. Whole towns had no bridge between what used to exist and what came next. Sit with that for a second. It wasn't the machine. It was the gap. Fast forward 2 centuries, and economists started asking the same question in a more careful way. Did the machines actually destroy work? Or did they just move it somewhere you couldn't see? MIT economist David Autor has spent much of his career studying exactly this. His research on automation found something counterintuitive. In the long run, mechanization didn't shrink total employment the way everyone feared. It shrank certain jobs brutally and specifically while creating other jobs nobody had a name for yet. The hand-loom weaver disappeared. The mill mechanic, the textile engineer, the clothing designer working with new fabrics, those roles grew. The number of jobs decades later was higher than before the power loom existed. That should feel like good news. It doesn't, does it? Because the people who lost their looms in 1810 didn't get to become mill mechanics in 1830. They were gone by then. Their children might have found new work. They didn't. The gap that Hobsbawm described isn't just an economic gap. It's a generational one. The math works out fine eventually for society. It rarely works out fine for the person standing in the middle of it. Economist Carl Benedict Fry, who studies the history of automation at Oxford, has made a similar point using a different comparison. He looked at 2 waves of technology, the Industrial Revolution and the Computer Revolution of the late 20th century. In the first wave, machines mostly replaced physical labor, and the wealth created flowed unevenly, sparking decades of unrest, riots, and political upheaval before wages caught up. In the second wave, something similar happened again. New technology raised total wealth. It didn't distribute the transition kindly. Your brain doesn't know the difference between 1811 and this year. That's the strange part. The part of you that feels a flicker of dread when you read about a new piece of software doing your job faster than you can. That isn't a modern anxiety. That's an old one wearing a new coat. Somewhere in your nervous system is the same alarm that went off in a weaver's chest when he first heard the sound of a power loom 2 streets over, steady, rhythmic, producing more cloth in an hour than he could make in a week. You don't have looms in your neighborhood anymore, but you have something that runs on the exact same logic. Every time you check your phone, you're responding to a system built to be more consistent than you are, more available than a person, faster than your own attention span. It's not a loom. It's not weaving cloth. But it operates on the same principle those Georgian mill owners discovered by accident. Machines that never tire will always outcompete a human rhythm that needs rest. The mill owners learned this could produce more fabric. The apps you use learned it could produce more attention. Same discovery. One industrial, one psychological. So why does it feel personal even when you know logically it's just a system? Because your ancestors' brains were built for small groups, slow change, and threats you could see coming. A predator gave you warning. A bad harvest gave you a season to prepare. A machine that reorganizes your entire trade in 5 years gives you almost nothing. Neither did an app that reorganizes your attention in 5 minutes. The speed is the threat. It always was. Here's the twist most people never hear. The Luddites are remembered today as people who feared progress. That's not quite right. Read their actual demands and you find something closer to a labor movement than a tantrum against machines. They wanted fair wages. They wanted time to adjust. They wanted the wealth the machines created to reach the people the machines had replaced. Hobsbawm's research makes this case directly. It wasn't blind resistance to technology. It was a demand for a slower, fairer transition. History just remembers the hammers, not the argument underneath them. You are living inside the same argument right now. You just don't call it Luddism. You call it burnout. You call it doom scrolling. You call it a strange low hum of dread whenever a headline mentions a machine that can now do something only a person used to do. The power loom didn't just take 20,000 jobs. It revealed something about how humans process change at industrial speed, something that never got fixed. Because the next machine always arrives before the last lesson finishes sinking in. So tonight, when you feel your thumb move toward your phone without you deciding it should, you're not weak. You're not undisciplined. You are a 200-year-old reflex, meeting a 200-year-old machine that finally learned how to run faster than you can look away.